The Agenda is powered by DART, Delaware's transit service, moving forward.
Kerwin here, host of The Agenda. We have made you a promise that this season would be on fire, and it is. This election season has been popping, and the candidates have been coming here to ensure that you know what's on their agenda for you. So we're excited. It has not stopped today. We have a first-time guest, Mr. Collin O'Mara. Welcome to the show.
Kerwin, thanks for having me on, man. I'm really excited to be here.
Hey, we're excited to have you. Anytime The Agenda has a guest, we're excited, right? So that's where the bar starts, right?
Just climbing over, just a little bit.
But thank you so much for coming on to the show and having this conversation with us, making sure that people know who you are. We have had, I would say, a spring of acquaintance between you and I. We have been in a few different debates together in which I've moderated. You have been there and you have made sure that people understood your stance on several issues. One of the feedback that I've gotten from folks is they're like, yeah, we like him, but who is he again? So please tell us a little bit about who you are.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, you're the other guy, right?
You're right.
Again, Collin O'Mara, running for governor. I'm a girl dad. I got 3 young daughters. I'm a public school parent. I'm a basketball coach and a soccer coach. I coach at the YMCA. I coach my girls' teams. I'm a better basketball coach than a soccer coach. I ran DENREC for 5.5 years under Governor Markell. Was able to make progress on a bunch of fronts in air pollution and recycling and more trails and all kinds of things. Still a lot of work to be done. And for the last 10 years, I've been running the National Wildlife Federation, which is a large national organization that really focuses on environmental justice, on climate change, and on restoring habitat and making communities safer. And so we've been able to do work all over Delaware and all across the country. But I've been in Delaware for almost 16 years now, and I got the 380,000 miles on my Prius outside the studio right now to show all the miles I'm driving back and forth everywhere.
It's a faithful vehicle.
I fell in love with the state when Governor Markell brought me in, and I'm glad to be raising my family here today. And I just think we could be doing a lot better than we are right now.
Yeah, I know from your track record and what you've done and for the environment for the state of Delaware, we want to say thank you for that while you were there. As the DENREC lead, you did a heck of a job. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. But why? And I have to ask people now, because this race for governor this year this is a first for Delaware politics. And since I've been tracking it, right? I mean, the mudslinging, the allegations, I mean, it's been a lot, right? So my question to you is, why would you want to get involved? I mean, you went to Oxford University, right? You're a well-educated person. Why would you want to get involved in this?
It's like book smart and street smart are 2 different things, right? Like there's still a couple screw looses somewhere. I'm a policy nerd, right? That's why I love the DENREC job, because there's real problems that we could solve, right? If we had the right people around the table and kind of moving things. I got in because, really, it was a simple issue, right? I didn't think we were doing enough for our kids. And, as I'm seeing kids that I'm coaching, seeing kids in my daughter's schools, the number of kids we have living in poverty, the number of kids that aren't reading at grade level, the rates of infant mortality, we've had Democratic control for a long time. And I don't think that's the case for Republican control. I think it's just control for new Democrats that can, really act on some things. But I got in this race because I thought there were issues and kind of voices that weren't part of the debate before. And, they often joke that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I thought we needed a different option. And so when other folks didn't kind of step up to provide that, I decided I wanted to get in and talk about some things. But we also committed at the beginning, we were not going to throw any mud. We weren't going to say anything about anybody ever, just, be completely, like, ruthlessly, kind of relentlessly positive. Just because, I don't want my 7-year-old, seeing politics as a dirty thing. I want her to see it as service, not as, slime.
What do you see, or why do you see that Delaware is now doing politics this way?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think so. I came right after the 2008 race is when I moved, right, to join Governor Markell's cabinet. And, Governor Carney and Governor Markell, when they're running against each other, both, hugely just amazing individuals that had the decency not to get into any kind of mud fight. And there's kind of been this decency that's kind of prevailed in House races, and, when Lisa and Townsend and Sean were running against each other. that's all out the window right now. And I think a lot of it's outside money. I think a lot of it's, folks from out of state that are putting money into the race. I think it's, I think there's some filters that some folks don't have about how, that we have to be able to come together and actually govern, that we are kind of a state of neighbors, and I just think my frustration is that there are like real policy differences, and you've highlighted a lot of them over the last year, but instead of focusing on that stuff, we're seeing, the attack ad after attack ad in the mail at this point is just like so over the top. I mean, I had to tell my 7-year-old that she can't go to the mailbox anymore. I mean, she's asking me about like, why does it say this about naked people, or why does it say that about going to jail? And it's just like, I don't want her to like, think of that. But I mean, I've been saying a lot, like if everyone's fighting each other, like who's thinking about the things we need to get done? And a negative attack ad's never helped lift a kid out of poverty. Has never fixed a school. And I just think when folks are so desperate or thirsty or whatever the right word is for something that, and we have such a late primary, that combination has just led folks to become more and more over the top. And like some of the things that are being discussed are serious things.
Right.
But the way that they're, kind of being forced into people's living rooms is just, it's going to make turnout lower. It's going to have less confidence in government. It's going to have, folks not believe that we can do the things we need to do.
I love that, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to use it and say that I said it.
Full license. I'm sure I stole it from somebody else.
That a negative attack ad has never lifted a child out of poverty. One thing that we've talked about in several of our debates is Delaware's not doing well in a lot of factors. One is education and economics. So many things that we're just not doing well. We don't have time for this other stuff that's going on, right? So one of my questions to you is, how are we going to do this in a bipartisan fashion to deal with all of these issues that we have? And through that, like, what is your, as head of of a major environmental organization, what is your philosophy or methodology in regards to management? And how does that translate to this bipartisan behavioral ideas that we have to have?
Yeah, I don't think either party has a monopoly on good ideas. And if you look at states that are making incredible improvements for kids in particular, starting there, some of the best investments in pre-K in this country have been done by Republican governors. Guys like Ron DeSantis in Florida, who you'd never think of as being a champion, or Kim Reynolds in Iowa, or Governor Kemp down in Georgia. They're making those investments because they know that it's, using the quote from Frederick Douglass, it's much easier to build strong children than repair broken men. And they're going to save money in the long run because kids are going to be reading better. They're going to do better in school. They're going to be better trained for the workforce. In Delaware, like we kind of do like incremental steps. We had a couple $1 million, at the end of the year if there's a few extra dollars from DFAC, but we don't make like the big investments. Like, I think one of the things we've seen as you've seen, bigger and bigger supermajorities is that it has been less dialogue between the sides. And
it's noticeable.
Yeah. And I think and you see more fights on the floor, right? Because issues that probably could be resolved if there's just a little more debate, a little more work in committee, are all of a sudden going to the floor because you have the votes. You don't need to, got to find that area of compromise. When I first got here in 2009, the Democrats had just taken the House back for the first time in 24 years. And so all of a sudden but it was a very small majority. And so you had to work together on things like the bond bill, on the budget, anything that needed more than a simple majority. Like, my management philosophy is that I want to make sure the smartest people are around the room, regardless of their party, regardless of their background, because there's a wisdom that comes from those ideas kind of clashing against each other. And I just think when you get into the group think, which I think we're guilty of in some areas right now, you keep kind of rehashing the same things as opposed to saying like, well, why is the state of Maryland number 2 in educational performance? Why is the state of Missouri making all this progress in affordable housing? Why is the state of Illinois doing innovative things to reduce evictions? Like, there's a humility and I think a humility to be open to new ideas. And like the best ideas, I'm not gonna have all the best ideas. I want to make sure we're pulling from the best ideas, not just in Delaware, but from across the country, because there's not a single problem that we face here in Delaware that somebody else hasn't made more progress on somewhere else. So let's steal those ideas, and a lot of them are bipartisan or nonpartisan even, because they're not really partisan issues. They're just, building housing, right? Like, it's not a partisan thing.
I mean, why aren't we, this isn't a question that I will hold you to, but why aren't we doing that now? We only have 1 million people. I can't think of a better test bed, even mathematically. You got 3 counties and 1 million people. You have all these ideas. Why the heck aren't we doing that now?
Yeah, I think my theory is that there has been a hesitancy to have like new ideas. I was kind of an anomaly coming in from, at the time I was working for the mayor of San Jose in California when I came in. And I think that you have a lot of groups that are kind of have their battle armor up a lot when different ideas come to the floor. So as opposed to saying, look, we're trying to solve this problem and starting with a problem as opposed to starting with a solution, we end up, kind of getting into our kind of political lanes or geographic lanes or, racial lanes, whatever the case may be, as opposed to saying, look, like affordable housing is a crisis. Here are 50 different models from across the country. Which ones make the most sense for Delaware, right? And actually kind of presenting it that way, but having it be a nonpartisan conversation. And I think the Business Roundtable and some others are trying to do that, to have like early childhood be part of like the economic development strategy. Like we're seeing it in the civic sector. I just don't think we're seeing enough on the government side.
Yeah. Economic development worries me, right? I mean, we're getting rid of organizations. We're bringing in new organizations that are to solicit to these big companies out here. We need to come up with a better way.
Yes.
We need to come up with a better way. And I believe that whomever our governor is, they need to be the cheerleader.
Right.
They need to be the one on the plane. They need to be, the person that's going out here. And it was great what Carney did with the Sixers stadium. And it was a long shot. But, I mean, at least he was swinging at the pitch.
He tried something.
You know what I mean? He did something. But we need a cheerleader out there for our great state and bringing in the business. How are you going to do that?
I think the two governors, the three governors that were probably the best at that in the last 40 years were Governor Markell, Governor Carper, and Governor DuPont. Three that really kind of embraced that particular role. And if you look at the economic development efforts of those eras, a lot of big things happened.
We had two, other than in Michigan. We were a small state then. We had less than 1 million people, and we had a Chrysler factory and a GM factory in the same county.
Yes.
In the same county, we had DuPont, which was employing over 20 or 30,000 Delawareans, and we had Maryland Bank or MBNA at that time. I mean, it was huge. If you didn't have a job in Delaware at that time, you didn't want a job.
Well, so when Tom Carper left office, we had the lowest unemployment rate in the country and the second highest median income. Because like you said, if you wanted a job, you had a job, right? And at that time, look at 98, kind of as a benchmark, there were 12 different employers in Delaware that you could you earned $60,000 in $1998.
Yeah.
Without a college degree. Of those 12, the only one that's still standing that has like real, kind of job numbers still is the refinery. So Avon, Hercules, you go down the list, right? And so the next governor is going to have to diversify the economy, and I think that it's partially being a cheerleader. I think that's absolutely right, but it's also building on our strengths. So like we've got this incredible financial services and credit card legacy, which is increasingly automated every day, right? So there's fewer and fewer bodies. The pieces that can't be as easily automated are cybersecurity and some of the fintech pieces. So let's make sure we're doubling down, and we're making some of those investments right now, but there's real jobs there. So how do you become the leader there? We've always, going to Carper's kind of 4 C's. Or credit cards is the first one. The second one is, it's chemicals. That's going to be life sciences. It's going to be biopharmaceuticals. It's going to be the full range of sustainable chemistry as folks are moving towards, less polluting alternatives.
Oh, I forgot. AstraZeneca was here too.
Exactly. And a huge effort by Governor Carper to bring them in. And, and so, thinking about like that sector, again, moving in the right places, and UD's doing some amazing stuff. The Lieutenant Governor's on the board of Nimble that's, kind of doing really innovative stuff around biopharmaceuticals. It's really, really smart stuff. How we get those innovative ideas to be commercializable ideas to become companies and not just acquisitions by the big guys in other states. It's going to be the piece of keeping those jobs here. The next piece is on, we said the cars, like you mentioned, like the automobile industry, like that sector is going to have to be filled by clean energy. That's going to be a combination of hydrogen, offshore wind, some stuff in the solar space, some stuff in the energy efficiency space. But like there's real jobs there that can't be outsourced because there's construction that has to take place here. I want to make sure the R&D and some of the production is done here too, not just the construction. And then the last piece is, kind of like the combination of tourism, kind of the chickens and the beaches, which obviously there's workforce housing issues. But if you look at that map, that's a lot of successes that we can build on. A lot of places we have natural advantages. We're not trying to start from scratch. We're actually trying to build on, our longstanding history, but basically we want to move it into the 21st century. And I think if we did that, and this is where I want to see like the partnership project, not just focus on like site selection, because God, we can't site any more freaking warehouses. It's like, first of all, they're going to be automated. They're not going to create jobs, right? So they're not
say that again so people know.
They're going to be automated. So I'll say it into the camera. Unfortunately, like more and more of these big warehouses aren't going to have a lot of people, and the people they do have aren't going to be paid very much. And so I want to make sure we're making stuff here using the innovation. And there's a lot been talked about how we are a great state for innovation. We're not a great state for entrepreneurship. And so that the difference is how to make sure the ideas that are happening, whether it's at UD or in a company or in a garage somewhere, become a commercializable company that wants to start here. And that requires rethinking how the state supports things. But that's a different conversation than site selection.
Let me tell you, traveling for work, seeing other parts of the country, I love traveling and driving down their main strips because I get to see all the businesses. Exactly. Like Joe's Dry Cleaning and all these other places that are filling in this vacant land. And these are entrepreneurs. These aren't chains. These aren't chains for basic things, you know, cell phone fixing and all these other things that are minor stores, but someone's name is attached to that.
When you're building wealth, right? You got ownership.
Why
you got,
the heck can't we do that? And what I'm realizing now as I strengthen my knowledge in regards to politics and talking to politicians is we're not offering the same incentives as these other states and municipalities are to support entrepreneurship.
That's right. Well, the EDGE grants are really exciting. This is kind of a program that's been, you know, a lot of federal money is moving through it. We're starting 15 years after a lot of other states, right? That have been focused this for years. But there's two pieces. The money is great. The capacity to have the skill, because you got a lot of folks that are great entrepreneurs, have great ideas, but don't have the business training to actually take an idea and, you know, especially navigating the regulatory environment to try and get a certificate of occupancy, trying to get through, you know, how you deal with customers, how you basically build that kind of brand loyalty and everything else, especially when you're competing against chains in some cases. And so there's an entire opportunity, you know, and this is one of the sad things when the partnership project kind of, you know, separated DETO into different pieces and the division of small business got left behind. There isn't really a clear place right now for lots of folks to be able to go and get the kind of services that you're talking about to be able to actually build up a small business. But my thing is, I want to build wealth, right? And I want to make sure that folks have the ability to build intergenerational wealth. And that's ownership of both property and businesses. And you know, obviously no better, more important place than the Black community, but we're not doing a fraction of what they're doing in other states to try to build that kind of power that leads to just transformative change.
And not just bringing in the programs, but bringing in the programs that are effective in those communities. I mean, Delaware's great. We'll turn this into a programmatic exercise in a second, but most of them fall on negative results, right? When are we going to begin to adopt the stuff that works and bring that to the community? And that's what I'm looking for in my governor.
Well, no, and I want to run 5 programs that work really well, not 150 that kind of half-ass it, right?
Right.
And I don't know if I can say that on
there. Absolutely.
So, because we do this all the time, the legislature will adopt a program, they'll put $100,000 behind it, we assume it's going to change the world.
Right.
And then we'll add 3 more the next year, right? And we just kind of keep adding and adding and adding, and it's supposed to say which ones actually support real people. The workforce programs are the worst example of this, right? Because everyone's got their own workforce programs. The Workforce Investment Board's buried 6 levels down in the Department of Labor. You got DSU doing their stuff. You got Del Tech doing their stuff. You got the unions doing their apprenticeship programs. You got Curtis and John and everyone and Gwen running the Pathways to Apprenticeship program. That's one of the most important programs we have in the entire state. It's got to be connected, right? We got 30,000 folks that are looking for work right now. 20,000 folks that are looking for work right now. Most of them don't have the skills because the workforce maze you have to get through doesn't mirror the best practices in all these other states that have figured it out, because they know every dollar they spend there is going to put folks to work, which all of a sudden increases every kind of opportunity across the state. So we can do so much better. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to be willing to actually operate the wheel.
Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about healthcare in the state of Delaware. We had a guest on last week, and it's 1 million people that are diabetic in the state of Delaware. We're spending $1 billion, excuse that number, $1 billion on diabetes and diabetic testing supplies here in the state of Delaware, out of 1 million citizens. That's crazy, right? So what would be some of the things that you would do to increase healthy awareness, health in the state, and just the overall cost of healthcare?
Yeah, we need to create a kind of a culture of wellness, right? A culture of health. And we have some of the most amazing outdoor natural resources. Obviously, I'm biased as the wildlife guy, but I'd like to see our parks be more accessible, right? I want to see more folks using the trails. I think there's an opportunity to actually get folks healthier.
By moving them.
By physically moving them.
Moving.
Yeah. And we're building all these trails, but there's certain demographics that use them more than others, right? And so making sure that there's access there. There's economic models around healthcare, around what they call value-based care, and where you basically provided more resources for keeping people healthy than having them be sick. So you kind of flip the incentives, because right now, the sicker somebody is, the more money is kind of provided in different kind of procedures. Where if you actually flip that and actually say, look, we're going to avoid all this cost, a piece of that savings can actually go to the provider. Massachusetts has done some good work in this. California's doing some stuff. There's some conservative states too. I just think we got to flip the model, because whether it's, you go across the board. It's not just diabetes and obesity, but you go look at hypertension, you look at child asthma, you look at respiratory illness.
That was just one factor. It blew my mind.
No, we're one of the unhealthier states.
Again, something else that we're not doing well.
That's right. And it's and like, and some of that's, the aging demographics. I mean, there's some pieces to it, and some are environmental factors with, some of the legacy pollution. And we've done, we've cleaned up most of the power plants and we got rid of all the coal plants. There's still some pieces there, but some of it is just making sure that folks are more active, and I think, I'd like to be a governor, especially, with like little kids, that really tries to get more kids outside. One of the things I worked on with Governor Markell was with Carla Markell, the first lady. We had a campaign that's called No Child Left Inside. And that's just get them outdoors. And there's two parts to it. One is to have them learn in nature because it's great, great laboratory. Second was just get them healthy, right? Just get them outside. And this is why I've been such a big proponent of free school breakfast and lunch, because if I can get them fed well in school with good, healthy food and get them outside a little bit more, they're more ready to learn. They're going to be happier, healthier. I mean, a whole bunch of social determinants get better if you're actually making investments earlier. Well, but it's a huge opportunity, and it doesn't cost that much. It's a fraction of what we're already paying 35% of the state budget, pushing 40% on healthcare.
Right.
Let's spend a little bit on prevention, not so much on kind of the disastrous outcomes.
You've brought up education just now when you're talking about healthy lunch. Just another thing that we're not doing well here in the state. We are failing. Our grade is, I guess, would you consider it a D?
Oh, no, we're solidly in the Fs now.
We're solid in the Fs. I tried. I tried. So people want to know, there's a lot going on with local districts. We won't name names, but everybody knows who they are. What is going to be, if elected governor, what are going to be some of the things that you're going to do to change education here in the state?
Look, my frustration is that I feel like we've made decisions for 50 years now, maybe 80 years to go back to the funding formula.
I don't want to talk about money in regards to education. Everybody on this show knows it's just sets me off completely. and I'll make it very clear. I don't want to spend another dime on education getting the same results that we're going to, especially if you have a failing school. You should not be getting a whole lot of money. So we'll just say that.
So I'm going to push back a little bit. And I think my argument is that we're just spending it badly. We're spending it badly. I mean, like the fact that we have 19 school districts, in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, each of which have more population than we have as a state. They have a single school district. Philly's a single school district for 2.5 million people. It's a hard conversation. The Christina board is, I'll name them. They're proving they can't govern themselves right now. I mean, it's an absolute disaster. Should there be a conversation around consolidation? Especially as we're having the conversation about getting Christina out of the city. I mean, it's one of only 14
should have been
done 30 years. Never should have happened in the first place, arguably. And getting Colonial out as well. I mean, these are big conversations, but also create massive savings. I mean, my frustration, and I see it in Alana's, she's in second grade, but when she was in kindergarten, she had a 16-year teacher, a great educator. Still making like less than $50,000 a year. Was having to moonlight at Christiana Mall to be able to pay for her daughter to go to college. So she's exhausted, and she was a great. I mean, I'm not disparaging at all. She's an amazing teacher. But nobody should have to do that, right? And like and you go kind of across the major pieces. Like the state legislature made great improvements for like mental health funding, really important, absolutely critical. Also want to make sure the kids are fed. I want to make sure like a lot of kids qualify for healthcare.
Just a baseline.
My thing is just
the
get them ready to
baseline
learn.
to get them in.
And I think we're so busy playing with like curricula, but it's just like if the kids are hungry, if the kids have trauma, the kids. I mean, like
none of that matters.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
So, and my thing is, I kind of want to get the politicians out of the curriculum, right? On both sides. I mean, I don't want Republicans banning stuff. I also want Democrats jamming more stuff in. I want to basically say, look, what's it going to take to have healthy kids that are ready to learn, and then actually trust the teachers who went to school for this for a long time to teach them how to read. Because if you teach them how to read, then all of a sudden science gets easier, history gets easier, everything gets easier. But if kids can't read by the time they're in second grade, they're never going to catch up. And like, it just has to be simpler, right? And so for me, like there's a couple pieces to it. Laura Sturgeon, this the great senator from the Brandywine 100, has been focused on the literacy pieces and just focusing on like teacher autonomy. So we actually let the teachers teach. We don't have classroom ratios, the number of teachers in a classroom based on the needs of the kid. So if you're taking like an AP English class, you might have one teacher. If you're teaching a bunch of kids that are struggling with like remedial math or remedial reading, you might have one teacher for 25 kids that have huge needs.
Right. You're never going to get...
If you center the kids, right, everything else gets easier. But like we've just kind of gone around the bend with like just bad decision after bad decision that have not, we took money out of the schools with charters and choice, right? I mean, it's just like it's unfortunate. It's going back to desegregation. I feel like we've done every single decision that hasn't centered the kids in a real way, especially the kids that didn't qualify for an assessment exam, the kids that didn't have transportation to choice to somewhere else, the kids that are in school a couple blocks from here. Like that's where the investment has to be, and it goes back to I don't want to trigger you, but it does go back to inequitable funding, and it's just like and I think there has to be more funding, but it at least has to be more equitable format for kids that are experiencing poverty, kids that are multilingual learners, kids that have more special needs, have more funding than the high flyers that don't need it.
I just don't think it's a financial thing. I think there's so many other factors that we need to deal with, and utilizing our current funds better. I think it is something in regards to education is something that we really need to take a look at. Collin, I unfortunately we're running out of time.
Are we really? It's been quick.
This has been quick. It's a good
I talk quick, so.
But I want you to take this time to tell people why you should be their next governor. Please tell us.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, right now we are facing some just incredible challenges as a state, and the attacks aren't going to solve any of them. But if we don't figure out ways to invest in our kids, if we don't figure out ways to make sure that we are building those strong children right from 0 to 5 all the way through pre-K through high school, we're going to continue to struggle as a state. You can't have a strong state unless you have strong schools. You can't have a strong economy unless you have strong schools. And so I think it all starts there. At the same time, at the last debate, you and I talked a lot about affordable housing, and talking about the inaffordability of healthcare and of childcare. Like, these are all problems that have solutions that other states are pioneering right now. And so it's just a matter of having the courage to actually take on some of the special interests that benefit from the existing system. And so, same thing on the climate change side, right? I mean, we're staggeringly vulnerable. And I'd like to be a governor that's willing to kind of break out some of the blinders we've had in the past, be willing to try new ideas and really try to show folks there is a better way. Like, we don't have to live the way we're living right now. Mm-hmm. Like, we can build wealth in communities. We can create all kinds of opportunities for entrepreneurship. But if you keep running the same play over and over again, I feel like it's like full back up the middle, like over and over again, and we keep getting stopped. There are huge opportunities, and I joke all the time that, like, if we're going to call ourselves the first state, we should act like it, and that means having higher ambition. Like, I don't want to move our schools from 46 to 42nd. I want to move from 46 to 1, right? And like, what would it take over a generation to do that? That's going to take new ideas and a new generation of leadership, and it's just not going to be the same old, same old.
Well, you've heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Collin O'Mara, thank you so much for joining us today on the agenda. We appreciate it. We hope that it's not the last time you come on.
Will not be, I promise, sir.
We hope it's not the last time. Good luck next week in the primary. We hope that you all have questions. Be sure to comment below on those questions. We'll get those questions to Mr. O'Mara, who will hopefully get them back to you, and making sure that your needs and your issues are right here on the agenda. Excited that he is here today. Excited that you're watching. Look forward to seeing you next week right here on the agenda.